I'm John Atkinson and I live and work on Nibthwaite Farm. We keep cattle and sheep and do nature-friendly farming, and we also keep a lot of rare breeds.
I'm Maria Benjamin and I run the diversification side of the farm. So that includes off-grid eco-accommodation, Jersey milk soap and skincare, wool and meat.
I'm the sixth generation to live and work at Nibthwaite Farm. My family's lived in the valley since God was a lad, I think. My mum took our family tree back 600 years, which was when records started, but we've moved 3 miles in 600 years, so yeah. It's always been a very small traditional farm. When I was a kid, my dad had a small milk herd. We grew potatoes and vegetables. We kept chickens and turkeys and things. So very, very traditional, very small. As children, we were expected to work on the farm before we went to school, when we came home from school, and every weekend. Holiday was hay timing or picking potatoes or thinning turnips or something like that. Because it was a small farm and I had 4 children, I had to have a job as well. A lot of farmers, either the wife or the farmer or whoever has to work, and the other people are left to look after the farm. So I worked for the National Trust for 25 years. I was really ill about 8-9 years ago, and so I gave up work and changed my life quite considerably. And then Maria joined me 7 years ago.
Well, I worked for Grisdale Arts for a few years. I first came as an artist in residence, I think in 2007. You know, moving from a massive city to the countryside was a big cultural change for me. But I realised that I loved this environment and wanted to carry on working more with animals rather than artists.
So we changed to go back, I call it back to the future. So we're farming like my granddad would farm, but with modern techniques and modern machinery, which makes life a bit easier.
When I joined John on the farm, I just thought it was crazy that one of us would have to go out and earn a living somewhere else. You know, it seemed, you know, we have to somehow make this viable because it's not sustainable to do that. You know, then a farm just becomes almost a hobby. So I thought, what can we do that that still is working on the farm, so one of us isn't having to drive off and work for somebody else? How can we generate enough income so that we can be together on our land and make the most of it? That was the intention, and so we did some sums thinking about, at first when we just had the accommodation and the meat, thinking how can we increase our profits here so that that generates enough so it feels like a wage. Even if it's a part-time wage, it's better than being off the farm. So that was the start, really, just in building, changing what we did at the campsite and barn, making a proper website and increasing the prices and changing what the offer was, just to generate a bit more income. So rather than taking less and just having to go out and get a job, it's like, no, let's look at what we have already and how we can change it that can make a little bit more for us. Our strategy is to always be thinking that there's enough profit margin, that's our cash flow, so we're not having to take out big bank loans. So that means that we're not, in a way, the business isn't so connected to the bank, it's more connected to our customers. And that's a really nice way to think about it as well, that it's our customers that make our business. So we're very loyal to them because they are kind of supporting the growth of our business.
On the farming side, the main challenges are the government agencies. It's just so strict and stringent, and you know, like rail tracks, they have one idea and that's the answer to everything. And trying to get them to bend or even look at anything different is really difficult. And I'm really into conservation farming, and I'm actually, people bring people round to show this is what you should be doing. But then further up the line, you can't get any change or whatever. It's so difficult. So I've been to Westminster a few times trying to help DEFRA sort things out, and the people at the top of DEFRA find it just as frustrating as we do. That it's just like, you know, everybody's sitting in their little box protecting their sort of job and their ideals, but then if we all work together, it will be much easier and much help everybody, really.
I guess that it's about where to invest our money in terms of how we grow. The online sales have been brilliant, so um, doing improving more of the online stuff, I think, is really vital. I think it'll be a long time before. Initially, we're thinking of setting up and doing more workshops, that kind of thing, but I'm going to avoid that for the moment. So it's just trying to now plan with COVID in mind, in case we get a second wave or it comes back next year. We just don't really know. But at the moment, we're just kind of going quite steady. Things are all working really well. We're not making major decisions. But we're still progressing. We're still moving forward, but we're not maybe making as big leaps as we might have done.
Yeah, so I'm 60 this year, which is frightening when you think about it. I've done well to survive this long, really, but I've used my 9 lives up. But so we've been thinking a lot about succession, and it's partly why we sort of changed tack a little bit on a few things. So actually looking at how we can run the business from with less input. Looking at, like, my son wants to take over the farm, but his partner works and lives in Yorkshire. She's got a very good job, earns probably 10 times more than him. So and also I think too many sons go into the business and don't have the opportunity to do anything else. So I wanted him to get that experience of working for other people and stuff. So many sons and dads work together and then they end up falling out, and it's not a good relationship. And he's become much more tolerant since he's realised that I'm not as daft as he might think, and and other people do make mistakes, and everybody's not doesn't do everything right. So I want to carry on for another few years till he sort of gets sorted out and they get a house and have a bit of time together before they have to actually run the farm. If we can keep the businesses going from afar, then and also we're employing other local people and letting them get a start, then in another 10 years we might want to sell part of it off. But it's nice
Unless a family member wants to take over the little bits. We've not pushed anyone into it, but the businesses are there for somebody to take over.
So in effect, we've got 4 businesses now. We've got 4 kids, so works out.
They can have one each if they want.
They can have one each if they want. Yeah. But we haven't pushed it that way. But they are definitely interested, and they're all very interested in staying around here and supporting the local community. So, in a way, through by accident, really, we've sort of worked it all out.
No, I think we have done really well with this business. I think your dad's proud. Your granddad would be proud of that it's still a sustainable farm business. It's not, it's in a better state, in terms of future proofing. We're not reliant on subsidies, because if the subsidies went, the profits from the other sides of the business mean that the farm is still sustainable, because they're interconnected.
Yeah.
We couldn't do the other bits of the business without the farm.
And vice versa.
And vice
really.
versa.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I grew up thinking business was a dirty word, like it was always about screwing your competitor and, making profit. But actually what I think we've got is a purpose-led business, and it's an ethical business, and that feels brilliant. So making profit in that way, it's not that we're making money to buy a hot tub, we're making money to invest back into the business to grow it even more and make a bigger ethical business, and also to demonstrate that farming and farm diversification can be really exciting and creative and interesting and sustainable.
So the business was set up by my dad, Sherlock, in 1989. It was a financial services business, so it gave advice on investments, pensions, mortgages, insurances. The business grew quite quickly, and it was within a year my mum left the job that she was doing in a bank and joined Dad to help out with administration and sort of office-related stuff. Within a couple of years of that, Dad started to recruit other advisors to join him in the team, and it was 1998 the business got the first employee, who was Sandra Sproat, and Sandra is actually still with us today, kind of 22 years later. Yeah, so the business was set up in Carlisle. Stan had a corner office in a building at the industrial estate near Asda.
Stan. It's funny hearing you say Stan.
Yeah, Dad.
So yeah, your dad.
Yeah. Dad's dad, Stan. Eventually, we moved into a small office in town, on Lowther Street in Carlisle. It was just after that I actually started doing some work there myself. I used to go in the summer holidays and help out with answering the phones, doing some administration, making cups of tea for other advisors and things like that. In 2001, I went to university in Newcastle to study accounting and finance, and that was where I met Emma, sort of 19 years ago now.
Oh God, yeah. It was 2002 actually. Well, that was when we got together. Yeah. We knew each other from the year before.
Yeah.
But when I met you, that's when you were in the smaller office on Lowther Street.
Yeah.
Because I can remember coming to the office for the first time to meet the people that you worked with.
Yeah.
And there were all kinds of jokes amongst the staff. But it wasn't that long after that we moved to our bigger building now, our current home on Lowther Street, where we have a sort of great high street presence with a Grade 2 listed building. Stan had a stroke, a career-ending stroke, and so that was when Bobby had to step up and take over, wasn't it? So there was a massive period of change, and we're still going through that period of change, really. But from 2014 onwards, Bobby stepped up, took over, and I'm sure with most family businesses, some of the cracks that had been papered over with very hard work began to show again, and so there were structural changes that we needed to make, and for a while Bobby was doing that on his own. And the pressure was starting to show on Bobby, really, wasn't it? It was a stressful time.
Yeah, I think it's for everything that we'd planned and everything that we'd done over kind of quite a long period of time, really. I'd been working in the business for about 9 or 10 years at that point, and the plan was always for me to take over. But for us, it was quite an instant thing. It happened quite literally overnight, where Dad was working. He had a stroke while he was at work and didn't work again after that. Mum, who'd done a lot of the administration and ran the office really, retired sort of a few months later to help look after Dad and to help kind of adapt to what they needed to do after the health concerns that they had. For us, it would have been perfect to have a really good transition period where Mum and Dad started to do a little bit less. I would take on more responsibility as that happened, but unfortunately for us, it didn't work because of the health issues that Dad had. But I think one of the regrets that we do have is that we didn't, or that I didn't instigate that earlier and really start to try to take on a bit more responsibility rather than having it all land on me at once.
Something else that needs to be addressed, which I think has been one of the most difficult conversations that we've had as a family, is that when you do take on the responsibility, what's the reward? Because ultimately things have to change in terms of how you're paid, how much you're paid, why you're paid, what the bonuses are, or the structure is, or the reward structure. And that's a very difficult conversation to have as well, because families don't like talking about money. Like even people in business together don't like talking about money, and families and business, that conversation is very difficult. But if you can have maybe a third party, a trusted third party involved, we have a trusted accountant, don't we, who's more kind of business consultant / accountant with us, isn't he? And he's known Stan and Sandra for years and years. He's dealt with the business for a long time, and well, I suppose now I've become a personal friend, really.
Yeah.
And that certainly, that sort of third-party voice is very useful.
Because it is very difficult, because there's part of it where I feel, am I asking for too much? Am I getting something for nothing? Do I need to do things differently? And I think the only thing I would say is that by the time we sort of, or I plucked up the courage to actually have that conversation and address it, it was fine. But it was all of my own concerns and worries about how that would be taken that were a problem, and not the reaction of mum and dad.
In terms of the structure, though, Stan and Sandra now have taken a big backward step. They're still there for help, they're still there for advice, they're still there for me to tell on him, but they have taken a massive backward step. Kath, however, has taken a massive upward step, hasn't she? Bobby's sister, she's the greatest support. She's absolutely wonderful in terms of her support, what she can do, her knowledge, and she has, I think, a much greater knowledge of the business support side of the business than you do.
Yeah, it's what Kath's done for 16 years now with us. So she's got a really good in-depth understanding of that. She knows where things aren't working. She knows where things need to change. And I think it's been more recently where she's been able to come out of her shell and actually really give me and Emma a massive amount of support there, which has been brilliant. Yeah, I think we in terms of that, for us as a business, we've always been quite ahead of the game in terms of industry changes, in terms of the regulatory requirements and things like that. I think our business structure, in terms of the back office support, the way we deliver what we deliver to clients, we've always been very good. We've always had a good structure, a repeatable structure and a repeatable process to ensure that we get things right.
It's robust, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think every part or every change that's happened to our industry, we've just been able to tweak our process and keep the end result the same, which is a good outcome for the clients. Even though that's meant us making some fairly big structural changes or fairly big process changes over the years, it's allowed us to keep the right outcome for the clients, which has been a big part of our success.
It's the strength of the business, really. If the clients are happy and we've managed to maintain that service, then we know we've got a business. If the clients start becoming unhappy and complaining and going elsewhere, it's when you lose the business, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
But so when we had the crash, that was the focus, and banks were pulling products and proc fees were going down, and the actual physical ability for the business to earn money was changing. But as long as we had happy clients, we could weather the storm.
Yeah, and it was a change. It was a change in focus for us because it was a time where everybody struggled to get mortgages. So for us, rather than the negative of it's really difficult to get mortgages, it's a problem, we set our focus on our advice is now more important than ever for clients and more important than ever for customers. And at a time when it was a huge challenge for everybody, I think we shone through that because we could continue to provide a good level of service and good advice for people when they needed it the most.
In terms of it being a family business during something like the economic crash, I think one of the worrying things is that there are so many people within the family involved in the business. So if the business goes down, it's not just one person's livelihood, it's brothers, sisters, mums, dads, and then it's all the people you feel responsible for, like Sandra, who's worked for us now for 22 years, the advisors. It's a heavy weight to bear, isn't it?
Yeah, that's been the case in the current situation where we've had to adapt to working from home and getting structures right and processes right for people to be able to do that, and that's been another. The current situation's been another challenge because I think it's something that none of us have ever experienced at all. So one of the things that me and Emma probably didn't discuss enough at the time was Emma joining the business and being full-time with us. I think that one of the things that we probably didn't appreciate is how immersed you become in the business. It became for quite a while a lot of everything that we spoke about, everything we did, we were working there during the day, we were discussing what had happened at work afterwards, and that was quite a challenge for us to make sure that it wasn't all about work and it wasn't all about the business.
It was difficult at the time as well because the business had been something in Bobby's life for a long time, but for me it was a change, so it was exciting, it was new, it was a new challenge for me, and it was something I wanted to talk about all the time. And if I'd been in another industry, which I had been previously, when I came home to discuss those things with Bobby, it didn't feel like work for him. Whereas now, when I came home, I was like, I had this great idea at work, and we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Bobby was just like, oh, Emma, it's too much. It's 7:30. Whereas I was so excited about it, I just wanted to tell you all my ideas and how we were going to make this work and that work. And so we've had to sort of work out that boundary, really, so that we can keep a separate home life to work life. I don't think we've achieved that. I don't know if we ever will. I don't know if anybody ever does. If somebody else has tips, send them our way.
Yeah, definitely. I think,
but yeah, it's not. It's too personal. It's part of your life, isn't it? It's part of your family.
Yeah, it is, and it's difficult. It's difficult to ever escape the fact that we work together. We are at the moment we're at home together all the time, and it's trying to separate the switching off at points and not having work as the only thing that we're doing.
Ultimately, if I don't get my own way, I tell his mum. I ring his mum. Tell on him, and then
true.
his mum rings and has a word.
Yeah.
So that's a good part of the family business. Yeah. I just tell on him.
The benefit of having your mum as a fellow director is that you can still get in trouble for things that you do. So yeah. We are very excited about the future. Over the last 5 years, we've been making a lot of changes in what we do and how we do it. We feel that we've got a better balance to our business now, in terms of diversifying out of one area of our business into multiple areas. And I think that allows us to ride the waves of what goes on, and we're not kind of reliant on one income stream as we possibly were before.
Hi, my name's Jill Hall, company's Butlers Farmhouse Cheeses, and I'm here today with Matthew, my son, and Daniel, my son, and together we run the company day to day. Matthew and Daniel are 4th generation, I'm 3rd generation, and we can trace our history back to 1932 when my grandparents bought the farm just across the road. And then they made cheese before the war, like every farm did in this area, and that stopped in the war. And then restarted again with the transition to the next generation, which was my parents, in 1969. So my grandparents had 4 sons, and they each had their own farm, and my parents took over the family farm, which is still where the dairy is based today, just across the road from there. And then that continued on the same site until 1989, when we had another generational transition to myself and my husband, and we built the new dairy on this side of the road. We also took the enormous decision at that stage to go into packing so that we could take our cheese to a wider audience and get real cheese into more homes. That was one of the big challenges of the 90s, starting a packing line. And also at that time we split the business, and my brother took the farm and I took the dairy. Another area that we diversified into in the early 2000s was blue cheese. So we started to make soft blue cheese as well as our territorial cheese, which Lancashire cheese, Farmhouse Lancashire, was the most famous. So we introduced a soft blue cheese now called Black Sticks Blue, which is famous in its own right. And leading on from that, we bought a herd of goats. We now have 1,000 of them, and that took us into soft goat's cheese. Together, those 3 cheeses of hard Lancashire cheese, soft Black Sticks Blue cheese, and soft goat's cheese can make the perfect cheese board. So we're now known as the gourmet farmhouse cheesemakers, which is a very nice tag that we've been given by our other local dairies. More recently, in the last 5 years, Matthew and Daniel have joined, and I'm taking more of a back seat, and they're running day-to-day operations now, which is fantastic. and my job is simply a gentle hand on the tiller, as you might say. But they are actually more and more now doing day-to-day running of the business, which is great. I can probably summarise it to say Matthew's looking after product and Daniel's looking after people, and making sure we can marry the heritage and all the artisan recipes we've got and making it more future-proof for today's consumers. I think the biggest challenges that we've faced over the years are also linked with the biggest opportunities, because they're connected to generational transitions. And I think over the years we've been quite successful to grow the business in line with the wider family. And so we are a very integrated, I don't know if you call it vertically or horizontally, but we're a very integrated business across the generations. Yeah, we've transitioned through these different phases. Going into different cheese varieties has obviously been a challenge. Soft goat's cheese and soft camembert style cheeses made with cow's milk we introduced in 2005, and that's been another big learning curve. Our butter mill has been in development since 2014 and has only recently hit the shelves, so that's how long it takes to create a new cheese, and we will continue to learn for the foreseeable future, definitely, about that cheese. It's a never-ending process, this cheese making, it's like the gift that keeps giving, being a cheesemaker. You can always keep learning more and improving and adapting, which is fantastic.
So a few lessons from my perspective over the last sort of 5-10 years as I've been in the business are that you're always going to get the sector-specific challenges. So be it product, customer, supplier type general business, but I think slightly bigger than that, it's really important to try and enjoy the process of getting there and moving through some of those challenges as a wider group, because there's going to be those sort of slightly rougher periods in any family business, and so therefore really enjoying those good times, celebrating the wins that you've had as a group, and trying to get some form of bonding and enjoyment through that whole process, because it's very easy in a family business for it to be all consuming and take everything extremely seriously, and sometimes you've got to retain that balance, if you will, as a group. So that's something that we've been really focused on the last sort of few years.
So just reflecting a little bit more on the lessons learned over the years, I think one of the really big things for us coming into the business as fourth generation is to reflect on the culture and really what is the purpose of the business. What is it that you as a family business stand for? What is it that really makes you tick? And I think that's one of the key differentiators between a great long-standing family business and perhaps some of the fast fashion, fast food, transient brands of today, is that ingrained culture and that higher purpose of what's in your heritage that you're really standing for. So we often talk as a business about strong foundations and built to last and quality, and they're really bedrocks of what we do around here.
One of the lessons for me over the last 15-20 years is trying to identify what the generation before has done, but also why they've done it and how they've done it, and taking the why and the how through to some of our future decision making, and not necessarily the what, because when we spoke earlier about moving into packing in the 90s, that was bold and it was slightly risky. So those sort of whys are maybe what we're going to have to do more and more in the future, but it's not necessarily that what of going into packing again. That's done, that it's happened, and we've moved on. So I suppose that's one of the things that for us moving forward is what's the next one. So is it buttermill as a soft cow's milk cheese? Is it more of the hot eating?
New eating occasions?
Yeah, and a lot of that sort of vertical integration with the farm, the environmental piece, you know, the next sort of development of us as a business.
Yeah, I think the future's really really bright for British farmhouse cheese. It's having the biggest renaissance at the moment as I can ever remember. I think it's probably fair to say probably that you can remember. It's in the spotlight like never before, as people are really getting behind local produce, British produce, where things are made, looking for things that are real in a world that's increasingly fake and things are transient. People are looking for something that they can actually get hold of. Has it been made? You know, what was the old ways? Can we go back to those? And that's really supporting what farmhouse cheese is all around. So it's a really exciting playground for us going forward. I think cheese is probably one of the coolest food brands or food product areas out there at the moment. So as we look forward into the future now, I think we're buoyed up with confidence over what we've seen over the last few months, especially, but also the last couple of years of Daniel and I working closely together in the business. There's a youth and there's an energy coming through, not just with ourselves, but with the wider workforce as we've kind of transitioned into this next generation. We're building on some really solid foundations of products, and this is taking us into whole new areas like direct to consumer, where we're able to start harnessing new ideas and technology to take essentially a farmhouse product from rural Lancashire into the home of somebody in London or in Scotland, or even in exporting Black Six Blue across the world now. So we can start to join up this consumer journey and tell a story that gives us a whole world of opportunity going forward.
So I hope some of what we've said today has been insightful. Obviously, it's barely scratching the surface, as you all will know. So if there is anything else that people want to have a chat about, then drop in, give us a ring, whichever. We're part of a very strong family business network locally, and there's always, whenever we have those types of interactions, we learn as much from whoever that is as the other way around. So thrilled if anybody wants to do that, and we can always share a cheese board and a coffee and go from there.
Thank you.
Thanks.